I've already made a video on why one-layer paintings are both fun, useful, and give a unique look to your artwork. But I realized I haven't done a proper tutorial on this topic, so here are my most powerful tips on painting with just one layer. This technique is really fast. That's one of the main reasons why I do this. This painting, for example, took only 5 hours, which to some of you might sound like, oh my god, that is so long. But trust me, if I had all of the layers and tools available to me, I would go crazy with perspective grids, shading and editing layers that eat up dozens of hours more. And honestly, they don't fundamentally change the visual impact of a piece like this. In fact, a big part of doing a single layer technique is to embrace the small organic flaws that come in the process that are unique to the way that you use your brushstrokes. Whenever you feel like you are starting to work on small details, zoom out and ask yourself, does fixing that actually change or improve the visual impact at all? This can be a really handy way to tell if you're making progress or just being fussy. And let's face it, painting can sometimes feel scary, and when we zoom into the details, we get rid of all of that scariness by not making big decisions. So this way of painting teaches you to make bigger decisions, and more importantly, those important, crucial decisions that actually have an impact on the way that your painting looks to other people, not just to you when you are zoomed into that one small area that nobody else notices. Let's get into specifics. If you have a detailed tree in the foreground, and then want to make changes to the way that your sky looks, or whatever it is that is behind that tree, that can be a real pain to fix on one layer. Second time sink can be painting things in the wrong order, but rather than focusing on the order of elements, try this instead. Before you start painting more detail, lay down every element in a color that is your best guess of what the final painting will look like. Then zoom out. No, I mean really zoom out. That's the kind of painting I want you to be doing first. If you are painting on one layer, arranging those elements becomes really difficult or even impossible, so it's better to mess up here than when all of the elements are already in place. This is also how great masters used to plan their oil paintings. They did a whole painting in a small scale first. That's the kind of painting I want you to be doing, not one that takes hours, but a few minutes to block in the main shapes and seeing if the visual impact is working. For me, it's really the combination of this sharp shape combined with the light and shadow on this grassy hill. That's the main point that I want people to notice in this painting, and once those are working, I can figure out the rest in the process, but I keep in mind that those are the main points that I want to highlight in this composition. Now let's fix those detailed, tricky overlap points, where you have, for example, a complicated tree on a flat sky background. Having a detailed tree or ornate fence on a flat sky background can be tricky without the help of a move tool. But remember that you can now work in a completely new way. So working on one layer also gives you new tools to work with instead of taking them away. Simply block in the big shape first, and then paint in the bits of sky over the main shape. Honestly, trees end up looking so much better and more organic this way that, at least for me, this is really easier way to do this in general. Usually when people try to paint foliage in small sections, they forget to shade the entire tree as a volume. So when you do that first and then go into the details, then that overall lighting will encompass the entire tree, and it's much easier to get that sense of volume that way. When you have a lot of layers in your use, you might be using a lot of blend modes in those layers. You can still do that, but the way that you do this with one layer painting technique is different. You just go into your brush studio and then under rendering tab, go into blend mode, and there in the blend mode section, you can choose whatever blend mode that you want to use in your painting. This way you can still use blend modes, but in a way that highlights your use of brushstrokes. And we're going to talk about those later, because that's one of the main reasons to do this, to enhance your use of brushstrokes and understanding how to utilize them to tell your story in a more powerful way. With more layers, you can go into this mindset that I'm going to polish and perfect everything on these separate layers until each individual element is done. But when you work on just one layer, you kind of get the optimal results by working on the entire painting at once. So whatever is the most distracting to the point of your painting, work on that thing and then move on to the second most distracting element in your painting. This way, as you're working on the entire painting, you leave some of that spontaneous look in your piece, because you end up not fixing those elements that don't need fixing, that aren't distracting. So only focus on elements that pull the eye into unwanted directions. I'm sure that some of you might be really offended by the way that this sheep is painted, but honestly, I love this so much. I think this is so funny, and there is no amount of money that could make me fix this element. It's beautiful and I love it. By the way, this whole painting is inspired by this super beautiful coffee shop that I visited recently, and they had sheep there, and I asked the owner, can I go and say hi to the sheep, and they all ran to the fence and let me pet them. That was one of the best moments in this summer for me, and I wanted to do a whole painting out of that experience, so here it is. There is one area that I have hard time giving advice on though, and it's the edges where small object edges meet. These are just easier to paint with layers, honestly. On a single layer, I often end up with these paint strokes that look like they're outlining the edge in color, instead of that clean look that you get with layers. Also, I honestly wouldn't even want to work these away from a painting. Personally, for me, this is the single greatest reason why I sometimes work on one layer or a limited amount of layers, because I just love this look. They just add so much to the physicality of the brushstrokes, and what's even better, they are all completely dependent on how you handle the brush. So everyone's painting looks really different based on the way that you use those brushstrokes. So let's get better with those brushstrokes and use them with design. This technique is the perfect opportunity to practice your brushstrokes, especially in larger areas. Think about the form of the shapes or lines in your composition. Can you group the direction of your brushstrokes to highlight the key elements in your painting? Visible brushstrokes on their own don't really help or hinder any painting, but you can think of their direction as an additional tool to control the eye in your composition. They can be also used to create interest in areas that would otherwise be boring. For example, in this study, I used brushstrokes to hold the attention in the sky because there were no details there, and I was just having fun with that area, but I think those brushstrokes hold the piece together with that rhythm. With the direction of brushstrokes, you can also think about the other large areas in your painting and contrast them with each other. For example, if you have vertical brushstrokes in the sky, you can contrast them with horizontal brushstrokes on a sea level or on hills or mountains or what have you. Just think about different areas and how you can label them into their own groups with brushstroke directions that fit them and contrast with the other elements around them. That just makes the image easier to read when people can separate the different objects from just the way that they are painted. Don't worry about color edit. The whole point of using one layer is simply to practice both planning and painting and getting better at using brushstrokes effectively. You are also practicing making those bigger decisions that actually matter and affect the look of your painting. There's nothing to be gained for including the color edit in this. So after the painting is done, feel free to make whatever adjustments you feel might help your painting in any editing app you might use. That could be an Affinity Suite application or Photoshop. Basically, whatever you feel works best for your color edits. I want to clarify that the whole point of using just one layer to do a painting, it's not to create some sort of arbitrary challenge or make painting more difficult for you. This is to make painting more easy for you, so that you don't have those sort of technical management logistics of managing where the layers are or worrying about painting on a wrong layer. This is supposed to make painting easier and more fun. And if you feel like you can get that same benefit and enjoy the process more by adding 2 layers or 5 layers, I'm not going to be your art police in this. So approach this challenge with whatever method feels natural to you. But know that these limitations are also pushing you to learn to paint in a more effective, decisive way. And if you want to do more art challenges like these, there is my channel membership, where I have tons and tons of videos and tutorials specifically designed to teach you to paint in a better, more efficient way. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope that you have fun with this.